So this guy is walking down the street and he falls into a deep hole. That hole has such steep sides that he can't seem to be able to get out. And he's stuck down there. He looks up and he sees a doctor pass. He says, "Hey doctor, can you help me? I'm stuck in this hole." And the doctor writes him a prescription and throws it down into the hole. He then sees a priest walking by and he says, "Please Father, can you help me? I'm stuck in this hole." And the priest writes him a prayer and throws that down into the hole. He then sees a friend of his and he says, "Hey mate, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you help me out please?" And the friend jumps into the hole with him. Our guy turns to him and says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both stuck in the hole." And his friend turns to him and says, "Yes, but I've been here before and I know the way out." My name is Laurie Castelli. I'm a human givens therapist, and this little talk is about the power of storytelling. Stories are a central part of our lives. We just have to look at how much we enjoy movies, TV shows, books, etc. But stories are much more than entertainment. We are storytelling animals. We like to think of ourselves as sort of rational beings that weigh up the facts and then make decisions on the basis of those facts. But much more often than not, what we're doing is looking for the facts that confirm the stories that we have already told ourselves about ourselves and about the world. Stories are the way that we create meaning. Our emotional world, our emotional life, isn't interested in facts. It's interested in meaning. Now, when we are suffering from anxiety, depression, or other emotional distress or disorders, it's as if we're in the grip of some negative stories, and these come up a lot in therapy sessions. The story that we're unlovable, the story that we're unworthy, the story that the world is a dangerous place, that there's no point, that we're inferior to other people. These are conditioned narratives. And I say conditioned because we weren't born with those stories in our heads. We learned them. And sometimes we learn them from our caregivers, from our parents, from our schools or our environment, our workplace, or even from the media that embeds these stories into us, and they become woven into the fabric of our sense of self. If they are often just a habitual way of thinking or a habitual way of creating meaning around the world, good therapy can sometimes gently challenge that. It can bring those stories to the surface, allow us to see them for what they are as stories, and then look at other narratives that are better at explaining the world and much more positive. And that can work really well, but it's rarely that simple. The stories we tell ourselves, even if they are negative and destructive, are often the way that we've explained negative events or trauma or emotional difficulties in our lives, and therefore they become embedded in our belief system and in our sense of self. We didn't think our way into those stories, so it's going to be hard to just cognitively think our way out of them. We need to find a new way of seeing the world, but not from a rational point of view, from our emotional being. And that's where the power of therapeutic storytelling can come into its own. Sometimes it takes a good story told under the right conditions to overcome some of the negative stories that have been lurking in the shadows. Now, anyone who's been lucky enough to have a bedtime story read to them as a child or does so to their kids can see at first hand the hypnotic effect of telling a story if somebody's focused and listening and in a relaxed state. That is the state in which our brain is ready to learn new meanings and to take on board new metaphorical patterns. Because it's not about the information that's being passed, but about the overall meaning that is being absorbed when we're in a really relaxed and focused state. Above all, as human beings, we're storytelling animals, and the stories we tell ourselves are incredibly powerful, but often they lie just below the surface of our thinking mind. And often we can hypnotize ourselves into negative stories by repeating them over and over again. So I would encourage us, all of us, to recognize and bring to light those repetitive storytelling elements that we have within us and start to question who taught them to us, where did we learn them, should we listen to them, and above all, could there be a more positive and better explanation of the world and our role within it? Because let's remember that the stories we tell ourselves are what we become.